Okay, I think I got it running. Hello, everybody. I don't know how to move this little thing over. Oh, there we go. That wasn't hard. Um, I have found, well, let me start with the Lord be with you. And then you say, and also with you. Peace be with you if you prefer that. So I have discovered, my newest discovery is that having no hair is very different from having a little bit of hair. And I did what I often do, and that is I try to preempt the suffering. So I thought my hair's already starting to fall out. I'm going to go to the nice salon that makes me feel pretty and have them shave it all off. And now it's still there. I've still got a lot of hair. So I'm like, did I shave off my head? Did I did I do it all too soon? What? And I do have eyelashes, and so I went out to Olive Garden with Bob. I couldn't eat anything. I ordered the baby food. You know, the baby. I I asked everybody at chemo today at the infusion center. I asked them all, "What does food taste like to you?" And the one guy at the far end, who's kind of barrel shaped, and he's in a shorter version of the chair. He said it all tastes like salt, like I'm just eating salt by the handful. And then this other guy said, or it might have been the same guy, he said, someone said that everything tasted like gasoline. And he said, and it's funny because when he was a kid, he liked sniffing gasoline. And then I said, to me it all tastes like it tastes wrong is the main thing, is that you it smells good. I'm hungry. I smell it. I'm reading cookbooks are very comforting to me, and I'm watching Julia Child's black and white videos of her cooking, and she is so clumsy. It's like she's tall and the countertop is so low, and she's down, her hands are super far away from her, and she's just always like taking the pie dough, the pastry, and then it's stuck together, and then but she doesn't even like beat herself up over that. I mean, I have all these voices in my head that just say, "Give it up. Just quit now. Your pie pastry is, you've had 400 little mistakes. You might as well just stop." Because there's this idea that when you're sort of with God, everything is kind of smoothing out. I'm looking at myself and I've got this thing right here. Do you know what that is? That's where I was sure I had a zit, and then I took, my fingers and did that thing you do when you're a teenager, and it ended up not being a zit, but that's happening. I end up with this mark. It was just a freckle, it wasn't even anything. So, me and Julia Child and I are very different. So, I mean, the perfectionism is intense, and if anything, this is kind of it's breaking me of that. It's like, just turn the camera on and go. All right, so the only thing that tastes right to me are these little leftover Valentine candy. And I've also got my gummies this time. So if you've got gummies or a glass of wine, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I think close to 11 o'clock. I've got my pajamas on. All right. These are the ones, these didn't come from the chemo people. They've got their own person, but she's never there. This is a local person at this kind of questionable. And I'm going to have a little bit, get rid of those horrible voices in my head. Because what is it today? Today is Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. I cannot believe that. I can't believe that this is Ash Wednesday. I was going to talk about Jesus in the temple. That was clear back in January. And I'm just like, yeah. When you don't feel good and days are just rolling into each other. And then I have a couple of really bright days, just a couple, even in like an afternoon, where I feel a little bit, anyway, you don't want to hear about me. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. All right, so you've got your gummy or your glass of, or your beer or whatever you've got, or your Girl Scout cookies. All right, I'm looking for it. I know wait a minute. Let's see, I'm going to lift this up. There it is. Okay. Julia Child. I'm persevering. So, here's the deal. First of all, the rule, or the kind of, if you're a cool pastor, you've saved the palm branches from last year, Palm Sunday, a year ago. You saved those, and now they're all dry, and you're going to take them out in your backyard or get some nice person in your church to burn them until they are ashes. And then you add maybe a little olive oil with that, and that is what you put on people's foreheads right up here on Ash Wednesday, and you say, "From dust you have come, and to dust you shall return." It sounds kind of grim, but for perfectionists like me, this is a real blessing to hear that you just came from the earth and you're just human. You're not a god. You're not supernatural. You're just fumbling along, right? Well, the deal is Ash Wednesday always snuck up on me. And I never had, I'd either have to beg Bob to like burn the ashes, and I'd give him like a 2-hour window, like I've got to be at the church. And so he would take the I'd bring home some palm branches, and then he would cook them on the stove. And then there, the smoke alarm and all of that. But most of the time, I had to improvise, and probably the worst time of all was when I was at Cornell College. I had a little kid with me. My son was little, and I remembered that I was supposed to bring the ashes for the Ash Wednesday service that we were doing there, and I had forgotten. I couldn't believe it. I had brought everything else, the prayer book. I think I was playing the piano. I think I brought my music. Anyway, so I ended up going into the cafeteria, and I asked everyone if I could borrow their ashes. This was back when they were still able to smoke. So they're smoking in the cafeteria, and they've got little ashtrays. And I took all those ashtrays, and then I went down into the kitchen. I think Gretchen was there. I asked for some. I probably ended up just going to the salad bar and getting like oil and vinegar and just mixing it up the best I could. And I brought it, and we ended up putting that on everybody's foreheads. And there's a part of me at the time, so here's the deal. This is where I'm pretty Presbyterian, and I'm very Reformed, which means that when it comes to holy moments, it's really important that you use ordinary household right around you, carnal, if I could say that, incarnational materials to in fact, my little thing's doing something funny. To present the holiness of the moment. So the bread should just be regular bread. Now this is going to be different from those of y'all in the Catholic tradition, and there's some lovely things about that too. I have to say, I love my Catholic friends and my favorite priest of all times. I mean, so I'll just say this is how I grew up, was that the emphasis needs to be, in my world, on ordinariness. So you don't have a hierarchical figure, as lovely as the Pope is right now, blessing all of this. It needs to be something, because holiness is not restricted to some area, but holiness is everywhere. The potential for that, for goodness, and a moment that sort of transcends ordinariness. But you start with ordinariness, right? Ordinary bread made locally, ordinary wine, or a gummy from the ordinary, questionable looking place on the interesting part of town. But that's my world right now. If you go to, as I understand it, to Asia, parts of Asia, for communion, they'll serve rice. I don't know how that looks. I don't know how it works, but all right, so here's what I did. Here I sit yet again on an Ash Wednesday, and my palm branches are at the church. And instead of having Ash Wednesday, I had chemo today. So what I did was I went into my kitchen and I thought, I'm going to look for the thing that is the closest thing to ashes that I have. What would that be? And in the wintertime, we burn spices. Not we don't burn them. That's funny because that's exactly what I said today when people said, well, what does food taste like for you now? I said, it tastes like everything's burnt, and not in a good way, because I like some things burnt. So anyway, on the stove, we have boiling water, kind of simmering, and we have cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg every now and then. Bob will put in, not onions, oranges, and lemons, and all that good stuff. And sure enough, down in the bottom of the pot, because it's been cooking a little bit for weeks now, we'll put in fresh stuff, but the other stuff's still down on the, and it does smell good. It smells so good. I don't know that those cigarette ashes smelled so great. But anyway, so if you missed Ash Wednesday and that's important to you, you can do that. Just go look at the bottom of your toaster oven, grab some of those little, pause this, and then, all right, so you're going to have to pretend like I'm putting it on you. You have to put it on yourself. Okay, so I'm going to, I don't know if you can see that in there a little bit. So there's some little, so what I would do is I would ask, if you were to come forward at church, I would say, what is your name, child? And you might say, my name is Mary. My name is David. And I would say, Mary, child of God, you came from dust, and to dust you shall return. I might do it in the form of a cross. Some people, are, but for those who are not, who don't lean into the Christian thing as much, they're more eclectic. I might do something besides a cross. I don't even know. maybe a little heart, or maybe I've got a church that enjoys that kind of thing. That hasn't always been the case. But yeah, this is what it's all about. Ordinary, ordinary ingredients that are nearby. So I hope that here we are, an hour till midnight, and yeah, everything tastes burnt. I said these aren't my people when I first went to my first chemo, so I just had my third today, and it was weird because today, I've just had some really awful days where I just felt terrible, and it's tough because people had told me this week it wouldn't be that bad. Oh, it's not that bad anymore. So I don't, but it was for me. It's been bad, and I'm trying to be brave, and I start thinking, I probably wouldn't be so great in a crisis. I don't think I'd last long in a war-torn country. These people you see in Gaza who are doing artwork or teaching music that works with the drones, I just don't think that would be me. I think I'd be curled up in the fetal position in my tent. I really do. Maybe if I had a good connection with other people, but on my own, I just turn into a toad. I mean, I like toads, but I just turn into a toad. Do y'all want to hear a funny story about Ash Wednesday? So, besides the cigarette butts, but anyway, Bob was at a big deal Ash Wednesday service that was a bunch of church people together in this one town. So you had the Catholics were there, the Methodists were there, Lutheran, all of them, all the different churches, they're all there. And they're in another big church. And here people come, and it's like a 7 o'clock at night meeting. And Bob's nervous because, you don't think about it like that. But at that time, he had a small church, and then other people had really huge churches. So he was like, I've really got to be on my game. I really want to do well. So he made sure his robe looked nice, and his stole was the right one. And he got up there, and he was the first person to speak after the prelude, with the violins and whatever. And he gets up, and he's so surprised that there are that many people, that there's just this packed house. It's just a huge church, and it's full of people that he doesn't know. And guess what he said? He said, wow, what a big ass Wednesday service. He said ass. He said big ass Wednesday service. Because that's what we do. We both do that. When we get nervous, out pops the thing we're not, I think we both grew up just nervous all the time, but out pops the thing that we hardly can believe we said it. It's like the word just comes out and just sort of sits there in the air. Ass. Did I say ass? I think I just said ass to all these Catholics, and nobody laughed. And he came home and he said, a couple of his friends had confirmed it. They said, oh yeah, you said big ass Wednesday service. So, all right, what are we going to read today? Do you have a Bible? Doesn't matter if you don't. Any Bible will do if you. Yeah. Well, we're going to look at Joel. Joel is, depending on the Bible you have, but it's in the Old Testament, Hebrew scriptures. We share these with our Jewish friends and with our Muslim friends, and plenty of other people read it too who are Buddhist. Oh, I need to tell you my Buddhist story. All right, because I'm not going to show you my bald head again. But my bald head did make me think of Zuiko, who is a Buddhist monk in Cedar Rapids. I imagine she's still there. And she would come to our town in Mount Vernon sometimes, and here she's got this, just walking so regally and her flowing. And then I would sit and have coffee with her at the coffee shop. And I said to her one time, I said, I'm teaching a class on religion and film. And one of the things I'm trying to do is figure out, is there a film or a song where you experience it, and when you do, you say to yourself, that's what it feels like. That movie has captured what it feels like to be a Zen Buddhist monk. So I've asked this to Methodists, Catholics. Do you have a emblematic kind of moment in a film where you say to yourself, if anything really tells you what it's like to be in my faith, I'm going to have a little bit more of a gummy, then how about, tell me what that would be. So I gave her a long lead up. These people said this movie, and this people said that movie, and my Jewish friend said this movie, and my Muslim friend said this is a movie. And I asked her, I said, so, she goes, yeah, we have a film group. We get together once a month and we watch a film together. I said, oh, that's great. So what is the film that you would say best captures or expresses or has that thing, that Buddhist thing? And you know what she said to me? She said, my group meets. Sometimes everyone is there. Sometimes everyone is not there. Sometimes we talk about the movie, and sometimes we don't. And that was it. I thought, how delicious is that? What movie? That just makes me laugh. And when I see my bald head, I think of her saying that. Here I've got my little pencil and paper, and I'm all ready for her to give me the right answer. And thinking I'm being so. And she's like, no, sometimes we talk about the movie, and just sometimes we don't. I thought, yep, that is the answer. Just being okay with all of it. All right, Joel. And to be fair, I didn't grow up with Ash Wednesday. Let's just be fair. Let's just be honest about that. The Presbyterian Church went through a liturgical renewal that was just kind of happening in the 80s. And that was brand new. And it was when people from the Reformation decided that, those of us who threw everything out that was even remotely tasted like it was Catholic, we threw out a lot of great stuff. And so here's this time where we're all having to learn how to do these things we didn't grow up doing. Because in my church, the emphasis was on sameness. God is the same. Our faith is the same. And sameness or consistency or unchangingness was lifted as one of the higher values. That God not changing. And so our ministers wore an academic robe because they had been to a lot of schooling, and they were wearing an academic robe, which was traditional for our faith, the Presbyterian faith, so an academic robe that anybody in the academic world would be wearing. So this idea of changing colors because of the season, that was not happening. And our hymn book was mostly all hymns about God, never change. And that's very comforting. Of course, it's comforting. But we move and we change, right? So today it's a combination where I happen to have lovely spices in my giant Calphalon soup pot. So that's different than what I had a few years back, which was, and I did, manage, thanks to Bob, and managed to do the palm leaves. But the holiness of that moment, there's something about that feels the same. It's like that movie Ratatouille, and he takes the taste of the ratatouille and he's transported back to his childhood, and it changes him completely. I just watched the movie yesterday. I told you I was into food, and I watched that movie and just, when he says nobody knew, what a great movie. But that the change happens, so they bring it to a different restaurant, kind of an underground vine crawling, and that guy who's been such a stinker the whole movie, now he's changed. He's wearing his beret, he's got his black turtleneck on, smoking a cigarette, I imagine. All right, Joel. Maybe you've had time to find it because I've talked so much. All right, let's see. So it says we're supposed to read Joel 2. That's the first reading. This will be the only one we do. Okay. Here we go. Oh. Do I say this other thing first? Do I interrupt myself? Yeah, I'm going to interrupt myself and say that last time I did this, we read that passage from 2 Corinthians, and I just wanted to let y'all know that, that weird phrase, we're broken jars and we carry Jesus's death inside of us so that Jesus's life will be shown through us, or something like that. And I thought, I know that's a weird expression, so I did a little work on that, and one of the ways you check that is to look at the old papyrus scraps. And the oldest one we have of that passage is called P46, I think it's called, Papyrus 46. And it was found in the 1930s, in a marketplace, like you'd have, a farmer's market or a food market or a spice market, a market in Cairo that was like an antique market. And it had been split into different, it was all of Paul's letters for the most part. And they'd been split, but they ended up getting bought together. They had all come from an area that's 60 miles southwest of Cairo, which fortunately for us is very dry. And so these little papyrus, made out of leaves and written on, had survived really in really great condition. And now you can see them. They're in two different places. They're at the University of Michigan, and they're in Dublin. So some of them are in Michigan, some of them are in Dublin, but you can go see them with your own eyes. But it dates back to 175 after the Common Era. So 140 years plus maybe after Jesus. So they've been copied and copied and copied. But what we do is we check our Bible passage with the original Greek, and we try to go back as far as we can in terms of archeological digs, right? And the good news is that this this papyrus shows that it's all kind of the same in this papyrus and a couple of others that we have to compare it to. So it's not like we're looking at one where there's 400 different versions of the same sentence, or in some passages it's missing, or, but you can check all of that. So there's consistency across the board. In all of them, they have this. But the interesting thing about it is not that you carry Jesus' death inside of you, but that the word for death they could have used, I think it's Thanatos, but instead they used another one that's much more medical and kind of gritty. It's more fleshy, and it has kind of an interesting connotation of, let's see how, it's always hard to translate it exactly, but it's almost like Jesus's deadness is carried around in all of us. And there's a little more word work you can do, but the best thing I can come up with is that it's the idea that you carry your mortality with you. You carry, for Jesus, or whoever, is in your life, or whoever you've decided, it goes much, it's everywhere, right? It's this idea that I'm going to die sometime, and my dearest friends are going to die sometime. My sister died, my mother died, my dad died, and in this life there's just always that sort of dragon breathing behind you. You're dealing with that. You're dealing with that. Not a cute dragon, and I love a cute dragon, but these, the monster, whatever, it's breathing that around you. And sometimes you feel really close to it, and to the point that you feel like you're dissolving, that its breath has burnt you to dust. And you're like, I don't have any good words. I'm carrying the idea of deadness, and just the struggle of dealing with things in the world of process theology. There's a phrase I love. It's called perpetual fading. It's that nothing's going to last. It's all going to, it's all, yeah. And I did all this kind of looking around the room today at all these people, and I had an interesting nurse. She told me things I didn't know about my prognosis. She told me things, but one of the things she told me, she barked at me about a lot of stuff too. So but one of the things she told me was that okay, I think the gummy has kicked in a little bit. Let me think about this. What was I trying to say? Oh, she started to say something to the effect of, you're one of the lucky ones. And then she said, all you have to do is get through these 6 chemo infusions. And then there was a little bit of, and you'll be on your merry way. But that's not true for everybody in here. And they've got music playing. They had the band up on Cripple Creek. That's playing really loud. All the nurses are running around talking in very chirpy ways about whether you want this kind of Girl Scout cookie, or don't you want one of these cute homemade whatevers, or anyway, they're very happy and cheerful. And I heard them tell the man down on the end, who says everything tastes like salt, with a barrel, I heard her telling him something that had to do with what his spine was doing and how it affected what medicine they were going to put in his IV today. And he was kind of missing it, but his wife was getting it, and she started weeping. And he was kind of like, well, and then the next thing you know, they're talking about selling their RV, and they won't be going on any vacations anymore. And then he kind of said a little bit of a Job kind of thing of, well, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes, And I was just like, this is so crazy that one minute I'm thinking, oh, what a wonderful place. We're looking out the windows at at the beautiful mountains. They're playing some great music, a little, anyway, lots of good music that's newish and fun. And she just let this guy know that he's not producing calcium. Something is that sounds very ordinary. It's not good. She's just delivered him the ashes. And it hurt me to see that. That made me really sad. And I think that's what it means to carry death or deadness inside of you. The deadness inside of you. But it says later in the sentence, the deadness is there, the dyingness, the depression, whatever you want to call it, that you carry inside of you. And yet, beautiful things are happening in your life. Beautiful things are happening in your life. And you're doing beautiful things even as you carry that. It's the paradox of that's so lovely. And it's in all of the ancient texts. The paradox is you're going through shit. And you're seeing other people go through shit. And it's breaking your fucking heart. But guess what? Great things are happening through that. Not in spite of it, through it. Now that's something. But it's hard to share. It's hard to share with somebody else. But I did that at Olive Garden, and it was hard for me to do. I lifted up my hat and I said, I'm going through chemo. Can I see a children's menu? And next thing you know, they're just like, anything you need. It's lovely. But you're going through it. And all of you are too. Okay, now that I've cried and I've had a little gummy, I can't even read my Bible. What are we, like an hour in and I haven't gotten... Blow the trumpet. Sound the alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming, it's near. This is not going to be good. I'm sorry, it's Joel. A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, like blackness spread upon the mountains. So in Hebrew, you're just getting hit with all of these difficult words that have to do with the shade, and it's not, you're in a hole. It's, everything good is left you. And there's a blackness spread upon the mountains. A great and powerful army comes, their like has never been from of old. So so you get this idea of, like in Lion King when the wildebeest come down and you hear this horrible music. And yeah, I think I talked about that before. That's a very important. I only saw that scene 500 times with my child. Tom Henry was little. Raina was all about Harry Potter. So yeah. So it's here comes this army. It is blackening the mountainside. They're coming. And you have never seen anything as devastating and as scary as this before. Nor will anything come like this again. So you're facing it. It's coming at you. Fire devours in front of them, and behind them a flame burns. All right, so we got fire. And everything tastes like burnt stuff. Before them, the land is like the Garden of Eden. But after that, so you were living in the Garden of Eden, kind of la-la land. You're living in, a sense of naivete. You don't think it's going to happen. La-la-la, tra-la-la, tra-la-la. But after that, after them, a desolate wilderness, and this is the tough thing, and nothing escapes them. So they are looking at you. You know how you're hoping that they'll look at somebody else in your life when you've been there, and nope, the eyes come right at you. I'm resisting talking about my childhood. They have the appearance of horses. Verse 4. Did I tell you that this was chapter 2? I don't know if I told you that. We're now at the little verses. We're now at verse 4. They have the appearance of horses. This is an interesting sidebar. One of the ways you can date when things are written in the Bible, and they're not in order, chronological order, but is the appearance of horses. Horses came at a certain time, a certain year, so we know that this was written, even though they might be talking about something really old, we know it was written in that after the horses arrived, once they had horses. So we would call this written in a little bit later period in the Old Testament or the Bible, Hebrew Bible. War horses, they charge. As with the rumbling of chariots, they leap on the tops of the mountains like the crackling of a flame, devouring the stubble like a powerful army drawn up for battle. Before them, people are in anguish. Yeah. And we see them. I mean, I know for those people in the corner, they were looking at cancer coming at him, and his wife's crying, and what does it say? All faces grow pale. All the faces grow pale. Now, it says in the Hebrew, and I could look, I can't promise you anything, but we could do an archaeological dig, because in my Bible it says that the traditional meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain. So they threw in the word pale. So it might be a word we don't have a clear translation for. But just having the word faces, I mean, you've got this whole giant army roaring at you. They are zeroing in on you as an individual, along with all your people, but zeroing in on you, and your face is going to grow what? Pale. Maybe there's another word that's even better that has to do with how your face, and I could see it on her face. I couldn't hear them very well. I need hearing aids for sure. Like warriors, they charge. Like soldiers, they scale the wall. So you've built some defenses. Now, where am I going with this? Well, I'm going to take it to a Jungian spot. I was warned against this my whole time in seminary, but I don't care. In terms of thinking about what this feels like as a person and what this might be feeling like for you, you might have defenses that you've put up, of whatever it is you're going through. Whether you're trying to break up with somebody, or you're in an abusive relationship, maybe you're LGBTQ, you're dealing with, maybe you're in a church. I'm telling you. So churches attract those of us who are artsy and enthusiastic, and here we come with bells on, and we're ready to play that piano, and we see a place that's full of all these great, it's a toy story, another movie, a toy store for people who are of a certain kind. And we see all of this. You mean I can play the organ anytime I want, and people are going to listen, and I can be the lead in the play, and I can do all this stuff? Or maybe a quiet person sitting there with your parents, but you're hearing a lot of perhaps good stuff, and there's some drama maybe, and whatever church you're going to, you're just doing it like you do it, and you've got some friends, and oh hooray, it's Communion Sunday, I get to eat the little piece of bread, or someone's gonna get baptized and they get dunked, or and then you hit something, you hit puberty, and you go, wait a minute, I'm having feelings, I'm starting to hear, and here you are in this place where you've experienced love in a kind of authority, an authority figure is telling you great things about yourself, and then all of a sudden you get slapped. Once you have a a realistic view of who you are, suddenly you're hearing words like abomination and all this stuff, and they're using this Bible, and it's just awful. And I didn't have that experience as an LGBTQ person, but I did have that experience as a woman. And I get something. That's probably the closest thing I can get to. Where anyway, I'll save that for another day. But again, that death that we're carrying around, the deadness, you feel it. And as an ally for my LGBTQ friends, I feel it. And you see it on the faces of folks when it's just awful. I ran into somebody, I can't remember where I was, but somebody shared that story with me. And when I was a counselor, counseling people, I ended up with people who had been through this very story. And some of them are still in it. They're still in that church trying to fit that together with what they feel on the inside, what they know to be true, and what they are encountering from people they consider to be wise. And I just want to say, you're okay. And I'm no authority than the next person, but I will say, as a pastor, you're deeply loved. And there's nothing wrong with you. And that's what Ash Wednesday's all about. Big Ass Wednesday. We're all ashes. And when we put those ashes on our heads, this was a lovely story. I don't know if it's true, but it was one of those things that we were all excited about as pastors. And it had something to do with the Middle Ages, I don't know, and some deal where a church or a group of people or they were living in a time when I guess they would put these ashes on prisoners, people that were, stuck in the stocks, who'd been accused of witchcraft or demons or gay stuff, whatever. They were accused of something. And these people put on ashes on their own heads, people who were supposedly good, as a way to say, you won't be able to tell who the criminals are from people who haven't been accused of whatever. Even though we're all doing weird stuff all the time. Even though we're all human. And we have thoughts and we have whatever. And that was just a lovely thing. It was kind of like we're all the same. And so, as these people who'd been condemned of some sort, and they were, having to wander around the square like they're being, what is it when you join a fraternity? Hazed, that they're going through that. And then everybody else starts dressing the same. It's like I know there are people in our town in Greeley where we're nervous about ICE coming, and there are people in Greeley who are now putting things on their car that look like a Mexican flag or something, even if they aren't necessarily from Mexico. As a way to say, we're all the same. We're all good people just trying to help each other and be neighborly. All right, so even when that happens, even when you've pulled together your resources as a gay person, as a lesbian, trans person, you're trying to pull it all together, and you've gotten to some place of stability, relative stability. It's like, I'm not trying to kill myself anymore. I'm not trying to jump off a bridge anymore. I'm not curled up in the bed anymore. I'm not crying for weeks at a time. I'm kind of got it together. I just had a little cry, and I had some suicidal ideation, but who doesn't? And I had some bad moments, but I think I'm standing upright. And then all of a sudden, out of left field comes this just horrible attack on you as a person. A stranger says something, your doctor says something, I mean, whatever. Somebody in a position of authority says, I mean, this woman that I just love, she's working with the researchers. She's got a cochlear implant, and she said the people that were at the previous hospital where she was working, they wouldn't let her bring anything in to help her with any kind of, where you're gonna make that a little bit easier. In fact, they went the other way and kind of ran her out of town because they were saying people don't know that you have a cochlear implant, and that means you have to read lips. I'm like, she's reading lips and she's listening and she's doing all this anyway. But something like that hits you out of the blue and robs you of your joy and takes away that sense of well-being that you've kind of sort of halfway managed with a lot of help. Yeah. And that's what it feels like. It feels like an army has come down a mountain. It might be one person. One person that's just over there by the tofu who says something to you. That's the only thing I can eat is tofu and rice. Yeah, that's all. And all of a sudden it's like and they're coming down and they're zeroing in on you and you can't get them to go away, and they're burning all of your lovely gardens, and there's just no hope. I mean, it's just dismal. All right. And this is when it gets bad. Here comes the passage from the Messiah where it says, who can endure God's wrath? The word endure in English comes from an old word that means in a tree. Dure, like endure. Endure is where we get druids because they loved the tree so much. So yeah, endure means you're in a tree. So yeah, you're trying to be a tree. You feel like a tree standing by the water, even if for a moment. You're doing all right. You showed up. You got out there in the world. And this one person says this thing, and it's like these people with, flamethrowers and all that are coming down a mountain on their horses. And the horses aren't nice. This is not nice. You don't even know horses. You don't have any horses. And these are more like dragons. They're awful. They're coming down, and you're standing there, and they have burnt you to a fucking crisp. They have burnt you. That's how it feels. And that's when you turn to your friend who's maybe with you and hasn't caught on that this has happened. And you turn to them and you go, I got to get out of here. And you walk away and you leave your buggy there. Unless it has some frozen things in it. You put the frozen things back. And then you leave the store. You walk out and you get in with your friend and you can't put it into words. Why you're so upset? And you're like, well, this is a lifetime. I have been dealing with deadness, a death that's out there in society that's about to get me too. All right, and the worst part is that in this book, Joel, God gets pulled into that. So now God is also, unfortunately, coming down the mountain with this Lord, male, he's coming down the mountain, and he's part of this army, or he's sent them. It's not good. Yet even now, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, weeping, mourning, rend your hearts, return to God, who is slow in mercy, anger, and abounding in steadfast love. Who knows? Verse 14. I don't think we're supposed to read that. It's funny, they'll cut out these parts that are just too hard to explain, where God is doing these awful things. Who knows whether God will turn and relent and leave a blessing behind him or not? A grain offering and a drink offering for the Lord your God? I don't know what that means. I think it means you need to put out a grain offering. I think kind of like Halloween. You're going to put out those things like Day of the Dead because you're scared of God. You're scared of God, and so you're going to put out some food and some wine kill your favorite calf. That's so sad. And anyway, you're doing all of that to try to appease this very angry God. Get a solemn assembly together. Get everybody together. It goes on and on. And then it tries to explain why God's like this. I don't know. It doesn't do a very good job. But it says, if you just do something, return to me, I don't know, keep the Sabbath. Anyway, it doesn't really matter what it is God's asking us to do or be. This same person who was in this other hospital that was so terrible, she's also been a part of a cult, unfortunately, and she was talking to me about that when she found out I was a pastor. She said that, what did she say about it? It had something to do with this. Oh, I remember. She kept saying that she was trying to have some sort of emotional connection with her whole self and something bigger or more, God. She was using the word God. I think she was using the word Jesus. But that sense of loneliness, that, we feel lonesome and we're kind of trying to connect. And she said, and they would just keep telling me that, things like don't show your upper arm, wear clothes that, come down over your upper arm. Here are the rules. Just do that. And God won't burn you to a crisp. So what do we do with that? Well, I have some. First of all, this is an entire study. It's called theodicy. How theodicy. So theology is the study of God. Theodicy is the study of the question, how can a good God allow bad things to happen? You can say it a lot of different ways, but I'm going to eat another little Valentine. So yeah, how can you, yeah, right? So this is saying, just, have a solemn, get serious, gather everybody, fast, put ashes on yourself, and I'll leave you alone. I won't keep burning everything and killing all your beloved family members and leaving behind the ones you wish that God had burned up. Okay. Well, the one answer that I thought was such a good one about theodicy, and this came from Aviva Zornberg, my favorite person, one of my favorite people in the world. And I got to meet her and just love her. And she's a Jewish teacher. She's like a rabbi, but and a scholar. She said that if you think of the Bible as literature, that if you think of it like, let's say, Shakespeare, right? That Shakespeare, in all of its plays, would be working on a particular problem, like what happens if your beloved children are disloyal to you? King Lear. So that's what we've been working on lately at our church. We had a King Lear, very funny new version of King Lear called Fool, and it was fabulous. The question of, so every one of Shakespeare's plays is dealing with a particular question and maybe has a kind of an answer. And she said, if you think about the Bible in that way, when she's talking about the Hebrew Bible, she says, there are times when the author of one of the books is playing around with the idea, or maybe even giving you a good taste of the idea of what would it be like if God only had this one characteristic. What if God was mono characteristic-ish? What would that be like? What would that look like? So, she might say that in Joel here, what we're experiencing, like King Lear, we're experiencing a moment when Joel is trying to imagine God being only, I don't even know the word for it, but not loving, tyrannical, a petty tyrant, a horrible king, an authority figure who is brutal and uncaring and really just supposed to be in charge of everybody, but really doesn't give a damn about you and would just as soon see you kind of fry, would just see. So let's imagine God being like that. Now, there are plenty of other, this is a time when this group of people who did all this wonderful writing were trying to distinguish themselves from all of the other gods and goddesses. Everything's going from a multi-god and goddess sort of idea to a singular one. I mean, before the Bible's being written, or in the world that the Bible is, these people are experiencing this. They're wandering around, and it's just like high school mascots. You go into one town and there's a big sign on the, you come into town, welcome to Trojan country, welcome to Gator country. We had alligators down south. We were manatee country. That's what we had in South Carolina. And here, welcome to Buffalo Bison country. Here we go. And it was just like that in those days. So you come into town, you better buy one of these cute little things, or our goddess is going to get you. We're all wearing Athena outfits. The colors are blue and white. Got the little things on. Got the little egg. I've got one. I like the size of this statue. And I've also got to go visit the shrine, the temple to her. And because all of those people are wealthy and they've got connections. And I've got to go there and make an offering of some sort. Because here in this town, Athena's going to zap me, or somebody, So there were different ones all over the place. So now we've got this passage where I wonder if Joel was thinking to himself, okay, maybe he had heard, maybe he had experienced. He probably did. I could do a little work and find that out. But he's experiencing the cruelty of the different gods and goddesses, and just the arbitrariness of it all, and the life, this natural disasters, locusts, flies, yuck, all of that. And he's saying, okay, what if? I know that flies in the face of people who think the Bible is the Word of God, as in it's somehow word for word the voice of God, and that means you can only think of it in terms of its plain meaning, its surface meaning, its okay. The interesting thing, all right, so vellum is paper that's kind of clear. You see it on, wedding invitations. It's kind of can kind of see through it. So I had a good point there, but I can't remember it. All right, it had to do with, I was really on a roll. And I've noticed that when I talk, this part of my lip goes up, just like my grandmother Gillespie. So what was I saying? Wow. You know what's nice about this is it's not just that I can't quite remember where I was going, but this feeling that that's okay. That's okay. So Joel, according to Dr. Aviva Zornberg, that we should be able to go down deeper. That imaginations come from whatever created us, even if I don't even know. But to think that we can't even go there. Like imagine there's humor in this. Or imagine this is a bit of a joke. Or there's a little bit of sarcasm. Or it's a little bit of, there's something more here. And what happens, I remember when I was conservative and my liberal, occasional, experience of somebody liberal or someone progressive or someone academic talking to me, I'd be like, you're just trying to get around it. You're just trying, it says it very clearly. You need to strip off your clothes and put on those ashes and walk around the town and blow a trumpet and say, I am sad and we have totally fucked up and we need to be back with God. That's what it means. And you're just getting all lost in the weeds. I'm going to say, that's bullshit. So, I don't know what I say anymore. I used to fight those fights on both sides, back when I was conservative. And then when I finally, slowly, after thousands of thoughtful academic people just kept helping me, for me, it was a lot of, if we're using the word God as sort of a ground of our being, as a force, the animating force of our world all around us, if we're looking at that force, we'll say God, and I have to limit God or prove that God's, I want to say virginity, that's not right, that God's what's the word that means integrity, that God's integrity needs to be protected, that I have to do that. That's a weird idea when you start getting it, it's like, anyway. All right. So there's an idea that we're imagining for a moment with Joel, that God is a mono, that God is not loving. Because, in some ways, this kind of proves it. When you go to Joel 4, no, there is no fourth. So those of you trying to go to the 4th chapter of Joel, there isn't one. You'll be in a different book. But I did find something that I loved. This is one of my favorite. I do love this verse. And it wasn't even really highlighted. It's just, if you read the Bible yourself, you just find these lovely passages that speak to you, How nice is that? All right, so Joel's just told us that God is riding on horseback and is going to just fry our asses. And now we have instead something different. It says that God's kind of fixing everything. God's got pity on his people. He feels bad. Do not fear. Anyway, it starts saying, but my favorite line says, be glad and rejoice in your God, for he has given you an early rain for your vindication. He has poured down for you abundant rain, the early rain and the late rain, as before. So, does this tell me that the Hebrew is uncertain again? Yes, it does. It says early rain is uncertain. Of course, it's my favorite part. Pale faces, early rain. So, what does this mean? Well, this means that God gave you an early rain for your crops and a late rain. So, that's very unexpected. It's very much a grace moment where it really somehow in this back and forth of my face is pale and I'm freaking out, and God kind of seeing my face, that there's some kind of a connection there where I'm seen and my pain is acknowledged, even though I look like this. That somehow you found it within yourself, God, or whoever is bumping into me. You found it in. It's on this side. Okay, let's get that right. You found it within yourself to offer me some grace. I don't look at all, except I got my eyebrows waxed. I went in there with a bald head and got my eyebrows waxed because I thought, if one part of me isn't doing something, I've got to yin yang it. I got to go to the other side. All right, so let's see, what was I talking about? Oh, the early rain and the late rain. So this reminds me of when my dad yelled at me and told me I didn't deserve a car. I was 18, 17, and I was like, Beth's got a car, Lisa's got a car, Meg's got a car, everybody's got cars. And I don't have a car. And I probably banged the table even. I deserve a car. And my dad came up and his finger was pointed like this. And he didn't have arthritis then. He was just so mad at me. Busted that door open. 816 Prince Street. The horses had galloped. It was dark, it was scary, and he was coming for me. And this was very unusual for my dad. I had never seen him mad like that. Maybe once. It was very unusual. And he's got his fingers coming at me. It was one finger, bent. And he said, "You don't deserve anything." He said it much louder and definitive, and his voice was shaking. And I thought, if you had a flamethrower, you'd aim it at me right now. I mean, his rage was palpable. And we've all known that. We've all known those moments with whoever. We've seen where their eyes just go black. Usually this was Mom. That was kind of normal for her. So for him to be coming at me like that, oh my gosh. Well, I went back to college for spring break. I came home and there was a blue Maverick, 1970 blue Maverick in the driveway, just like Lisa's car. And my dad spent days with me, days and days, all day Saturday. We polished it with, by hand and Armor All. And he lifted the hood and is explaining all the things. And we're changing a tire together so we can see, testing the oil. We go to the store to get I smell Armor All to this day. And I remember my dad, a lot like Joel here, where it's coming at you. So this isn't exactly, so I wonder if Aviva Zornberg isn't right, that this is imagining, that God is angry one moment, and then God is giving us not just letting us off the hook and saying, "I'll actually talk to you," but he put a damn car in your driveway and said it's yours. But maybe it's that the people at that time, like us sometimes, can't imagine both of those at the same time. Anger, when it feels like the world is angry at you. And we can't imagine that there are any nice people out there. It's just like when, someone comes up to you because you look like a man but you're dressed like a woman or something, and here they come. A complete stranger says, or somebody from your church, Or let's go racial. It happens in the race, the world of. It happens with everything. Um, uh, but suddenly you are dealing with this rage, and then later on, you get. So here comes the niceness, but I'm not letting go of that. It's 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 still ugly. It's still ugly. And it's easy to do. It's easy to bump into that mean person and say, well, this proves it. Everybody in the world hates me. Everybody. Everybody sees me like an idiot, that I'm a fool, whatever. And the weird thing is, it only takes the kindness of a handful of people. I say that, it took me, thousands of people to. Anyway. All right, so what happens next? I think we're probably out of time. And did I go over an hour? Oh my God. Okay, well, I think that we'll close. I wish you all well. I know you're all going through stuff. Some of you, I know what you're going through. Some of you, I don't know what you're going through. Nobody really knows what you're going through. But the good news tonight is that we all are carrying our dust, our deadness, all of it. We're carrying it around with us. And it's hard. And there was somebody who said that something like, if we could only see the burdens that each one of us is carrying, then you'd know why that person didn't go when the light turned green. Maybe they just heard some bad news. Or maybe they're just thinking about what's happened to them, or to somebody they were with, and they both just stood there not knowing how to respond. That we could have more connection with each other. We're all part of the dust. You are dust, and you're human, and it's okay. It's gonna be okay. You're here now. Chances are you'll be here tomorrow. Other people around you that you love are coming and going, but you're okay, and you're here now, and you're part of a lovely bunch of human beings who do funny things and tell funny stories. And I wish you well. Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold fast to what is good, render to no one evil for evil. Don't throw that tofu in their face. You can think about it, and you can throw the tofu if you have. It might have happened. Render to no one evil for evil, so we live in that tension. We know what's right. Evil for evil, but support those who are weak, comfort those who are sad, encourage those who are apathetic. There we go. Honor all people, rejoicing in the power of the Holy Spirit, now and forevermore. Amen.